I wrote a book, Awoken: A Modern Mythical Story,
Mm.
and I was just writing it because I'm also kind of a game designer. So I wanted to create a game where players could um, play mythical creatures like vampires, werewolves,
Hmm.
that sort of genre. But that's not the interesting part. So as I was writing this book, I was kind of developing the ideas of how these creatures came into existence, and I had this whole idea of souls
Hmm.
and how souls influence who we are, what we are. And then the strange part was I started having, kind of, weird dreams. And I started imagining like how the universe started and how the Big Bang happened and how that kind of ties into everything. So these dreams were basically telling me that the Big Bang started, I don't know if you guys believe in multiverses and all that sort of stuff, but um, so what I was dreaming was that before our universe, there was two other universes and they kind of grew together and that created the Big Bang. And the the beings and matter from these two universes. One was a universe of light and beings of creation and goodness. The other universe was a universe of darkness, where the beings were not evil per se, but they're just completely alien to anything that we could imagine.
Mm.
And they got trapped. Beings of light got trapped in our universe, in this new universe, and beings of darkness got trapped in this new universe. Well, the beings of darkness were driven slowly insane over millennia, and the beings of light formed stars, and these stars became gods. And in their universe, they believed in creation and knowledge, and that knowledge was the ultimate power. So they started creating uh, solar systems, and they became the gods. And and so the whole thing just kind of started to be more of a spiritual sort of um, view of what God and the universe and all that,
Mm.
how that all kind of ties together. So if you picture it as these beings of light are trapped in this new universe, which is a mix of light and dark, the dark between each of these stars. And these beings were, adrift and, in slumber. And so uh, they started creating things around them, pulling in, matter from the dark matter around them and stardust and started creating, first planets and then, organisms and eventually, intelligent beings. And what gives intelligent beings the spark of life is that these gods would take a piece of themselves and imbue it in this newborn physical form, and that would give them basically a link to God. And so the point of life, the universe, and everything is so that these gods could expand knowledge, and as they became more knowledgeable, they became more powerful, and so that was their whole purpose of creating life. And anyway, so the books and the game, which was sort of became a, more of a side as I was delving into this, life, to quote Douglas Adams, life, the universe, and everything.
Hmm.
Uh, and so it just it gave me a new perspective on religion and spirituality, and it came to me in dreams, and these were, I don't, I'm not anything special, but I think that that we all have this divine spark in us. That's what gives us a soul. And when we die, um, and this is especially, my mother just died on May 28th,
Hmm.
Mm.
and
Sorry to hear that.
yeah, it was really tough. And actually, I got to call out Tim Pool and his Discord because we were having some serious financial problems, and Tim and the Discord really came together and
Oh wow,
bailed us out. And
that's
so I
incredible.
can't say anything. I can't say enough good stuff about Tim and Serge and the whole Discord over there.
Yeah,
But
it's
anyway,
awesome.
but not to go off topic, but anyway, so this became more of kind of a spiritual journey for me. So now I'm working on, you know, I'm I'm writing. The first book was Awoken, a Modern Mythical Story, and it was about basically witches, and the way that these beings uh, became mythical creatures is that aliens, I love Atlantis. I love that whole story and myth.
Oh yeah.
So I'm kind of wandering here a little bit. So
No, it's okay.
um, do you want to do you
I
have a question
oh yeah,
or
yeah,
something just
yeah. I
to
was
focus me?
yeah, I was curious about these two worlds that you're describing. Are they merged in your theory, or are they two separate? Like you said, multiverse. Are they separate universes, like mirrored each other?
There were two mirrored universes. There is a theory, and I always butcher it, but there's this. It's a real scientific theory where you imagine like a kind of like a donut, and this donut is sliced into um, each each little layer of it is another universe, and
Hmm.
they just kind of all stack around each other. And
Yeah.
so in this theory that two of these universes that were kind of mirrors of each other touched, and when they touched, it caused the Big Bang, and that instance of two different universes coming together pulled a great deal of mass from both of these two other universes and formed our universes, which is why we're basically the Big Bang, we're expanding away from that point of contact with all the matter, and so there's a war between light and dark because the beings of darkness, demons, whatever,
Hmm.
in my book, it's darkling because I didn't want to, get into I don't want to Christians, Muslims. A lot of people get really upset when you start, uh, talking about, God and demon. And so in the book, I kept it, I try to keep it light, and I
Hmm.
just use darkness and light. Because I think that's really the key in the universe is I think there's forces of darkness and forces of light. And whether you want to call the forces of darkness, demons, the devil, or whatever, they basically represent entropy and destruction and
Hmm.
chaos. And the beings of light represent creation, love, growth and knowledge. And so there's this war because the the forces of darkness, the creatures of darkness, the light is basically burning them. It drove them. Like, I don't believe that they were evil in their own universe. I think that they were driven insane and to rage by this light that was constantly burning them for millennia, and so eventually that turned into a war between light and
Well,
darkness.
it's like one of my favorite things ever written was Paradise Lost, and that's a great depiction of a battle between good and evil. I love those things. But when you were talking about the gods in your vision of this light and dark world, do you kind of connect that to then old mythology, like say Greek gods? Is that like do you align that vision with things like that story, those stories?
um Not in the sense, in my in the kind of the dreams and the where I was. I mean, I'm serious. I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I would just have to start writing.
Mm,
And it wasn't about my book or my story. It was the spiritual aspect of it
right.
that I had never really thought of before. And so um, the whole point of God, our God, and, I do believe in God. And I think I think Christianity, has a lot of it right. I think the only thing I kind of disagree is I don't believe that it's, one God of the entire universe. I think that there are, uh, you know, I think there are, I guess it's polytheist, but I think each God has a realm. It's his domain, and the solar system is his domain. And the creatures of darkness, you know, they're out there between each of the various domains of the gods, and they stop them from interacting and coming together, and that's part of the whole war between light and dark is, anyway. So God, when it create when a person is born, or animals or whatever, that it imbues a spark of its being into them to give them their soul. And as you live your whole life, you are gaining knowledges and experiences. Because one of the problems I always had with Christianity is that, um, you know, ironically, my dad's family were Jehovah's Witnesses. So that last caller, I was like, man, I'm embarrassed to say this now, but but my dad's family, they were Jehovah's Witnesses.
Hmm.
My mother's family, they were Baptists. So, but I always had an issue with Christianity, with their belief that there's a plan, and all the suffering and all this. It never made any sense to me that this was a plan. Why would you have a plan for this if you're omniscient and you know the path and the future? And I've had the discussions with the Christians and theologians, and their explanations of why God allows suffering and all that. And but the whole idea of
Free will.
uh, the whole idea of choice kind of gets defeated if there's a plan. So I always had an issue with that part of Christianity.
That's
I
kind
think
of,
this
yeah. I was
theory,
real quick.
and it,
I was just saying the other day actually, because I do believe in God and I believe in Christ, and I believe in free will. But if you also believe in an omniscient God, you kind of have to believe that we have infinite free will, but it's also an omniscient God would know all those paths at the same time. So you kind of have to balance this idea of like maybe it's an illusion of free will, but you also have free will to make those decisions and go down those paths, in my opinion. But they're also infinitely laid out. Um, but I know that it's a weird thing to balance. That's what
does
makes the
that
most sense to me now, though.
does that in your theory, you've heard the multiverse theory, where every time you make a decision, it creates a new universe.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yep.
Okay. Well, so where I kind of am falling is that I believe that God creates us so that we will learn, and I don't believe it's omniscient. I believe that it becomes greater, the more knowledge it gets. So it creates us with this soul, and then we live our lives. We experience all these things. We experience the beauty of having. I have two sons.
Mm.
They're 10 and 12,
Amazing.
and and uh, and the beauty of that. But we also deal with the suffering of losing,
Oh yeah.
a mother, or losing, a child, which
Oh yeah.
I
Totally.
can't even imagine.
Unbelievable.
But if the purpose of life and existence is to learn and grow knowledge, and when we die, our soul, which kind of ties into a lot of the Christian beliefs, and going to heaven, when we die, I view it as an upload. We are uploading our souls back to God because He gave us our souls,
Mm-hmm.
and that soul is basically a divine hard drive, to put it in modern uh,
Yeah.
parlance. It's a divine hard drive, and when we die, that up that hard drive uploads back to God, because ultimately we are a piece of God, and so He's taking back what He gave us at birth, and that helps him, her, it, it's beyond our comprehension. That allows it to grow more powerful, more knowledgeable, and and spread its energy through the universe, I
And
guess. I don't know.
in your this vision of the light and dark worlds, is there a goal for like one side Like you said, there's a battle. So it's like, is there a battle for the darkness to take over the lightness, and then they just rule over that as darkness, or how do you see that?
Yes, and so the way that in the way that plays out in the world is that we all know these people that they're broken. They and it's my theory that all of us are born of the light, but as we live our lives, these forces of darkness, and I do believe in possession and all of that, and I think these beings of darkness, they they have learned that they can't directly assault God because of his light and his grace and it's divine radiance.
Mm.
So they have to basically cut off the souls that would be returning to him. And so they want to corrupt souls and turn them away from the light to darkness. And when they do that, once a person's soul turns to darkness, they're no longer connected to God. That's the reason why you see these people who are serial killers, these people who are child molesters, these people who are, just abjectly evil and cruel for no reason whatsoever. It's because they no longer have that light in their soul that God gave us at birth. And
Yep.
that's the point of the darkness, is that they want to sever as many souls from returning to God that they can.
Well, I totally
And
agree. I totally agree with that. Have you read the Screw Tape Letters?
the what letters?
The Screw Tape Letters.
No, I have not.
That's one of my
I'm gonna
favorite books.
I'm gonna I'm gonna write it down.
So C.S. Lewis wrote it. He did like the Chronicles of
Okay.
Narnia.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's a short book. It's a great book, but it's describing exactly what you're saying. It's letters between two demons who are trying to coerce their subjects into sinning or doing these dark things. Because that's is really like what you just described. It's an amazing book. But it's from the Christian perspective. C.S. Lewis was an atheist who then eventually was saved,
Right.
but he's one of my favorite writers. Someone I liked even before I was Christian. But it's when you're thinking about light and darkness and that battle, I think about that all the time, all the time. He puts it in very plain, in a really good way, as you're looking at it through the lens of two demons who are just conversing. It's amazing.
Did you see that movie that just came out?
Which one?
Oh, I can't remember the name, but basically, there's a guy in prison that I'm looking at the screen and it looks like you're moving, so I'm
Oh,
not
sorry.
sure when you're talking or not.
Oh no, sorry.
Um, but anyway, so in this movie, there's this guy in prison, and this psychiatrist comes in and interview him because they're trying to determine if they're going to put him in prison or not. And the guy says, he's saying he's a demon, and and
Hmm.
oh, it's a recent movie. It was like about a year or two ago. I'm pretty sure Tim talked about it a while back.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. I think some people have recommended that to me. I have not seen it yet. I think it starts with like an N, right?
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah, and
Um,
yeah, that's it. And that's the whole thing, is the guy says he's a demon, and
yeah.
he's gonna corrupt the guy and get him to kill three people, and
Hmm.
but it's very similar sort of situation.
I gotta watch that. Well, I really appreciate you calling in and sharing this like idea with us and all that stuff. And feel free to call back any other time, continue this conversation. And if you happen to read the Screw Tape Letters, let me know what you think.